Assalamu alaikum everyone. क्या हाल है आप लोगों के? Long time. Sir, please kindly regular add maths करें आप kindly. Okay. या मेरा इरादा है add maths को इंशाल्लाह regular करने का. What does add math mean? Okay, so let's start. Good afternoon from Vietnam. Wow. Achha, this is add maths, this is not regular math, so regular math students please do something else. Okay, so let's start. Let me see last क्या कराया था. Last हमने किया था. Okay, so we have basically done part 1 of differentiation. Now, I know this stream is technically part 4 because हमने part 1 3 parts में cover किया था. So अब जो part 2 है, part 2 में we're going to be learning how to differentiate different types of functions. As in, we're going to learn how to differentiate exponential functions, we're going to learn how to differentiate logarithmic functions, we're going to learn how to differentiate trigonometric functions. Okay, so this is the more complex side of differentiation. It's not that difficult. There are some rules that we follow. So as long as you guys are following those rules, you'll be fine. Achha, before I start, I would appreciate if you guys subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and also like the stream if you haven't done that either. Low voice? Achha? Thero. I haven't made any changes. Is this an O-level syllabus? Beta, this is add maths, okay? The add maths is a different subject altogether. Okay, so yes, it's part of O-levels and IGCSE. Let me remind you for the 1 millionth time that as far as add maths is concerned, there is no difference between O-levels and IGCSE. Theek ho gaya? Now let's start. So as I mentioned, this will be part 2 of differentiation. We're done with part 1. In part 2, we'll learn how to differentiate exponential, trigonometric, and logarithmic functions. Okay, so we will start with exponential functions. बेटा एक स्टेप एट अ टाइम. अभी एक स्ट्रीम कर रहे हैं ना आप दूसरी स्ट्रीम पे छलांग लगा रहे हैं कि सर वो स्ट्रीम कब करेंगे. तो one step at a time. Let's do what we're doing right now and then we'll focus on something else. Okay, so let's say that you have y is equals to e raised to the power 2x and you're asked to differentiate this. So how will you differentiate this? Now the way that you differentiate exponential functions is very easy. First you write the function as it is, okay, and then you multiply it by the differential of the power. So what will be the differential of 2x? The differential of 2x will simply be 2, so that means dy by dx is equals to 2e raised to the power 2x. Can't see? Oh yeah, you're right. There's something wrong. Thero. Just a minute. I'll fix it. Just a minute. Okay, should be fine now. So dy by dx is equals to e raised to the power 2x times 2. So I'll explain this again. The way that you differentiate an exponential function is that you first write the function as it is and then you multiply it by the differential of the power. Okay, so we'll write the general rule also, but this becomes 2e raised to the power 2x. Okay, so that's the answer. Let's do another example. Let's say you have y is equals to e raised to the power x minus 1. And once again, you're asked to differentiate this. So dy by dx would be equal to, first thing you do is you write the exponential function as it is, and then you multiply it by the differential of the power. So what do you get when you multiply it by differential of x minus 1? You simply get 1. So that means the final answer will simply be dy by dx equals to e raised to the power x minus 1. That's it. Okay. Let's do another example. Let's say you have y is equals to e raised to the power x square minus 2x, and you're asked to differentiate. So how will you differentiate? Dy by dx will be equal to e raised to the power x square minus 2x as it is. This will be multiplied by the differential of x square minus 2x, which is going to be 2x minus 2. Okay. So in the end, make sure to write this nicely. So you have 2x minus 2 first, which is being multiplied by e raised to the power x square minus 2x. And what's this equal to? This is equal to dy by dx. Okay, so let's make a standard rule. Here's the standard rule. Now suppose you have y is equals to e raised to the power ax plus b, and you want to differentiate this. So dy by dx is equals to e raised to the power ax plus b multiplied by the differential of ax plus b, which is equal to a. So that means dy by dx is equals to a e raised to the power ax plus b. Okay? Now let's say you have y is equals to e raised to the power f of x. Now we're further generalizing it. Okay, so we're writing the general rule and we're further generalizing it. So y is equals to e raised to the power f of x multiplied by f prime of x. So your final answer will look like this. Dy by dx is equals to f prime of x into e raised to the power f of x. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now let's do some questions. Okay, so we'll straight away do some past paper questions. No need to do any examples because it's very easy. So here are some past paper questions which we are going to solve. So here's one question. In all these questions, what we'll do is, since majority of the questions that I have are not from recent years, as in are from this papers prior to the syllabus change. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and not use a calculator unless we reach a point where we absolutely have to. Okay. So this is what we're supposed to differentiate. A curve has equation y is equals to e raised to the power half x plus 3 e raised to the power minus half x. Show that the exact value of the y coordinate of the stationary point. So what's the keyword in this question? The keyword in this question is stationary point. Stationary point means, how do you find out the stationary point? Now remember, all the rules of differentiation remain the same. Okay, all the rules of differentiation remains the same. That means if you want to find out the stationary point is basically dy by dx equals to 0. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to differentiate this. Achha. Now pay close attention as I'm differentiating it. So dy by dx is equals to e raised to the power half x multiplied by the differential of the power, which is going to be 1 upon 2, plus 3 e raised to the power minus half x multiplied by the differential of the power, which is equal to minus 1 upon 2. Okay, so make sure that you guys are following the step-by-step procedure. After that, what do? After this, what we do is we equate it to 0. First, let's write it nicely. Before we equate it to 0, let's write it nicely. So it's going to be 2e raised to the power, not 2e, 1 upon 2 e raised to the power half x minus 3 upon 2 e raised to the power minus half x equals to what? Equals to 0. Okay? Ab we have to solve for x. So half e raised to the power half x is equal to 3. I'm going to do two steps here at once. So if you shift this across the equals to sign, the sign becomes positive. And then if e raised to the power minus half x, you shift this in the denominator, what happens? That is, it becomes from negative to positive. Okay, so these are rules of indices. The sign of the power changes. Now, next thing we can do is we can obviously cross out the 2's. And now what do we have? We have e raised to the power half x multiplied by e raised to the power half x. So what rule can I use over here? If I'm multiplying two bases that have the two bases with different powers, actually here the power is also the same coincidentally. So don't make a standard rule out of it. But because the powers here are the same, the powers get added. Half plus half is equals to 1. So e power x is equals to 3. And now, notice that the question is asking us to find out the exact value. Exact value means could be in terms of e, could be in terms of ln, doesn't matter. So ln e power x is equals to ln 3. As we know, ln e is equals to 1. So what's x equal to? X is equals to ln 3. Now, don't get carried away. This will not get you full marks. This will only get you maybe 2 marks, because if you read the question is asking us to not find out the x coordinate of the stationary value. Instead, it's asking us to find out the y coordinate of the stationary point. So what are we going to do? We're going to take this x value and we're going to plug this back into the equation of the curve. Now, as far as the equation of the curve is concerned, I'll write this nicely. So I will instead write this as e raised to the power half x plus 3 upon e raised to the power half x. Okay? Let me double check. Yeah. So in place of x, we're going to write ln 3. Now imagine that we're not supposed to use a calculator. Okay, imagine that we're unable to use a calculator. So notice that earlier we got e power x is equals to 3. Okay, so earlier we got e power x equals to 3. So do not use a calculator in this question so that we can practice non-calculator paper at the same time. So imagine earlier we got e power x is equals to 3. Now, if I want to convert this into e power half x, what can I do? I can take the square root on both sides. So taking the square root on both sides gives me e power half x, which is equal to what? Which is equal to root 3. So this way, what I can do is I can simply replace e power half x with under root 3. So under root 3 plus 3 upon under root 3. All right, now this can be the final answer because the question hasn't, question has asked us to show that it's equal to 2 under root 3. So my bad, this cannot be the final answer. That means we have to simplify this. Now, how can I simplify this? I can simplify this by simply taking the LCM, which is going to be root 3, understandably. So that means the denominator here is 1, so we multiply this by root 3, so this also gets multiplied by root 3. So we have 3 plus 3. What's that equal to? That's equal to 6. So y is equals to 6 upon under root 3. Now, this is not the way the question wants. So that means now what we're going to do is we're going to rationalize this. So we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by root 3. So the numerator becomes 6 under root 3. The denominator becomes 3. And what happens when you simplify? 3 1s are, 3 2s are. So the final answer is 2 under root 3. So this is what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to show that the y coordinate of the stationary point is 2 under root 3. And we have done exactly that. Okay, so hence shown. Make sure to write the statement. It'll make you feel good. So remember that this rationalization, this surds concept is no longer officially part of your syllabus, of your AdMath syllabus, but it is part of the math syllabus. So that doesn't mean it can't be tested. It can still be tested, but it's going to be tested in math. In AdMaths, you may not have a standalone question on this, but you may have a question in which you have to use this concept. Okay. So that was the first part. Now let's do the second part. The second part says determine whether the stationary point is a maximum or a minimum. Yeah, it's basically assumed knowledge. That's correct. Smart, Mariam. So now we have to find out whether this is maximum or minimum. Now let's see if we have to use our calculator here. I don't think we'll have to use our calculator here. So dy by dx, let's first write down dy by dx. So here it is. Here's dy by dx. Let's copy paste it to save some time. Oops, you can't say again. Okay, now let's differentiate it one more time. So remember the rules of differentiation, no matter what function it is you're talking about, they remain the same. The rule for finding the stationary value, finding the double derivative, all that stuff remains the same. ठीक है, वो कहीं पे change नहीं होगा. Now let's differentiate it. So we have 1 upon 2 e raised to the power half x multiplied by 1 upon 2 minus 3 upon 2 e raised to the power minus half x multiplied by minus 1 upon 2. Okay, so half and half make 1 upon 4 e raised to the power half x. Minus minus overall becomes plus, so it's going to be 3 upon 4 e raised to the power minus half x. Okay, now let's be smart over here. Notice that this is not a constant, this is in terms of x. Now let's try and solve this without using a calculator. Notice that earlier we saw that e power half x is equals to what? Is equals to root 3. So that means this is what this will become. 1 upon 4 under root 3 plus 3 upon 4 under root 3. अब कोई भी मुझे बगैर कैलकुलेटर यूज़ करके आई एम श्योर इतना तो बता सकता होगा कि whether this is going to be positive or negative. Okay, so I don't think you have to use a calculator and tell me whether this is going to be positive or negative. You can do it without using a calculator. Now just to point it out, I've skipped a step. This shifts in the denominator, which is why I've plugged this in as it is. So tell me, what do you think? Is this going to be greater than 0, or do you think this is going to be less than 0? Obviously, it's going to be greater than 0 because this is positive, this is positive. So if you add two positive numbers, there's no doubt about the fact that the end result is going to be greater than 0. That means the final answer is that it's a minimum stationary point. Okay? So I hope that's clear. Now, that was one example. Let's do another example. Add math functions कब कराऊंगा? Add math functions मैं कराऊंगा इंशाल्लाह very soon. ठीक है, अभी functions में videos आएंगी पहले ताकि concept आप लोगों का cover हो जाए. फिर I'll do a stream covering. I will do a stream then covering all the concepts inshallah. ठीक है. So a curve has equation y is equals to x e raised to the power 2x. Next week में आप expect कर सकते हैं. Find the x coordinate of the turning point of the curve. So how do you find out the coordinates of the turning point? Double differentiate equal to 0. Now here also let's try and keep the use of calculator to a minimum. Okay, so y is equals to x e raised to the power 2x. That means u बराबर हो गया x के बराबर. We'll have to use product rule. U is equal to x, u prime is equals to 1. V is equals to e power 2x, which means v prime is equals to e power 2x multiplied by 2. Now product rule looks like this: vu prime plus uv prime. So dy by dx will be equal to vu prime, that means e power 2x, plus uv prime, which means 2x e power 2x. And since we're supposed to find the coordinates of the turning point, we're going to equate this to 0. E power 2x plus 2x e raised to the power 2x is equal to 0. Okay, now let's take e power 2x common. So it's going to be 1 plus 2x, which is equal to 0. That means e power 2x is equal to 0, or 1 plus 2x equals to 0. Now, can you solve e power 2x equals to 0? No, you cannot. Okay, you're very welcome to try. You'll notice that this is not solvable. Ln e power 2x is equals to ln 0. This is not possible. Okay, make sure that you mention it in the exam. Ln 0 is not possible. This, however, can be solved, and x is equals to minus 1 upon 2 will be the answer. That's it. Okay. Now, part 2 says, find the value of k for which you're given the double derivative. Okay. Find the value of k for which d square y upon dx square is equals to so and so. So that means all you have to do is you have to find the double derivative and compare it with what's given in the question. So let's find the double derivative. Are these add math questions? Yeah, of course these are add math questions. Add maths ki nahi hai to kahan ke? So the double derivative would be e power 2x multiplied by 2 plus, now in order to differentiate 2x e power 2x, we'll have to use product rule again. Okay, so ek kaam karte hain, let's cross this out. Let's use this as it is. Okay, and now let's differentiate. Now when you differentiate this, you get e power 2x times 2, no problem. So d square y upon dx square is equals to e power 2x times 2. But in order to differentiate this, you will now have to use product rule. Okay, in order to differentiate this, you will have to use product rule. So u is equals to 2x, which means u prime is equals to 2. V is equals to e power 2x, which means v prime is equals to 2e power 2x. Okay, I've written it directly because we've differentiated it so many times already. Now the double derivative, which is d square y upon dx squared, is equals to 2e power 2x plus vu prime, which means 2e power 2x, plus uv prime, which means 4x e raised to the power 2x. ठीक हो गया? Yeah. Now, let's put this all together. So, 2e power 2x plus 2e power 2x is something that can be added further. So, d square y upon dx squared is equals to 4e raised to the power 2x plus 4x e raised to the power 2x. Keep your eyes on the prize. That means keep looking at what you're supposed to bring it equal to. So we're supposed to take e power 2x along with the constant common. So we can take e power 2x common. The constant that we have to take common, we can take common, is 4. So if you take 4 along with e power 2x common, you have 1 plus x. Yes, you do. And this is the double derivative. So what's the value of k? K is equals to 4. That's it. Job done. But first I will inshallah finish differentiation and then I will do integration. Okay, that's what the plan is. Now part 3 says determine whether the turning point is a maximum or a minimum. So how do I determine whether the turning point is a maximum or a minimum? So we have the double derivative. The question is kind like that कि उसने पहले हमसे double derivative निकलवा लिया. Now it's asking us to determine whether the double derivative is maximum or minimum. Now remember, what was the x coordinate of the turning point? The x coordinate of the turning point was minus 1 upon 2. So what do you guys think? Let's keep it in decimal form. It will make life easy. So d square y upon dx squared, if I plug in 0.5 in place of x, so this is going to be minus 1 over 1 plus minus 0.5. So that means this is what we're looking at. We're looking at 4 upon e into 0.5. So what do you think the end result is going to be? What do you think the end result is going to be? The end result, if you think about 0.5, that's positive. Now if you think about 4 upon e, the end result is going to be greater than 0. Therefore, it's a minimum. Okay, so notice that in both these questions, we did not use a calculator. Okay, in both these questions, we did not feel the need to use a calculator. That means questions like these are doable without the use of a calculator. Okay, and don't think that non-calculator questions जो हैं वो completely different होंगे. Non-calculator questions भी इसी तरह के ही होंगे. Okay. All right. Now, let's learn how to differentiate logarithmic functions. But I've already answered that question, so please be attentive. I said that I will first complete differentiation and then after that I'll do integration. Okay, logarithmic functions. Can someone tell कि ये सिर्फ IGCSE? बेटा आप टाइटल खुद नहीं पढ़ सकते? ठीक है, क्या टाइटल पढ़ना बहुत मुश्किल है? It says add maths. Okay, this is not maths. ये वही लोग हैं जो पेपर में इंस्ट्रक्शंस नहीं पढ़ते. Y is equals to ln 3x plus 5. Suppose you're supposed to differentiate this. So how do you differentiate? Dy by dx is equals to 1 upon 3x plus 5 multiplied by the differential of the argument. Okay, so here's the standard rule. 1 upon the argument multiplied by the differential of the argument. Okay, so it's very simple. Differentiation is key. Differentiation of logarithmic functions is very easy. What's complicated? A little complicated is basically integration. Okay. Now let's do another example. Let's say we have y is equals to ln 5 minus 2x. And now we're supposed to differentiate it. So first step is that you write 1 upon the argument as it is, as in literally copy paste it, 1 upon 5 minus 2x. Now what would you get if you differentiate 5 minus 2x? You would get minus 2. So that means dy by dx is simply equal to minus 2 upon 5 minus 2x. Simple as that. Okay, let's do another example. Let's say you have y is equals to ln 3 minus x square. How would you differentiate it? Very simple. dy by dx is equals to 1 upon 3 minus x square. What would you get if you differentiate 3 minus x square? You would get minus 2x. So that means dy by dx is equal to minus 2x upon 3 minus x square. Okay. Now you can change the sign. You can write this as 2x upon x square minus 3. That's the same thing. ठीक है. कभी-कभी होता क्या है, marking scheme ने for no reason answer का order change किया होता है and we get confused. So you can write this as 2x over x square minus 3. It's the same thing. Okay. So these two are the same. Now, let's generalize this also. Just like how we generalized exponential functions, let's generalize this also. So first of all, if you have a linear function as the argument, meaning something like ax plus b, then this is what differentiation looks like. dy by dx is equals to 1 upon ax plus b multiplied by a. And then you can write it nicely. dy by dx is equals to a upon ax plus b. Acha, what's that? Sir, do we need to know a convergent or divergent series or prove whether a series is convergent or divergent? देखो, normally question आपसे ये ज़रूर पूछेगा कि बताओ whether there is sum to infinity or what or not. In that case, you can use these terms and you can use the explanation that if common ratio is in between minus 1 and 1, but you don't necessarily have to use these terms. Okay? Now, y is equals to ln f of x. Now, dy by dx is equal to 1 upon f of x into f prime of x. Now, this format is going to come in very handy if when we get to integration. So, f prime of x in the numerator. So, basically, a function in the denominator and its differential in the numerator. Okay, so now with this, let's straight away do a past paper question. अच्छा, logarithmic functions के differentiation के questions आपको इतने ज़्यादा नहीं मिलेंगे, तो हम भी एक example करेंगे और फिर हम trigonometric के differentiation करेंगे. ठीक है? So we're going to do one example and then we're going to do trigonometric functions की differentiation and then we're going to do one big stream of past paper questions of differentiation. So, here we go. Variables x and y are such that y is equals to ln 2x square minus 3 upon 3x, find dy by dx. Now, how will I differentiate this? I will have to differentiate this using the quotient rule. Okay, so this is basically in this form, y is equals to u upon v. So that means u is equals to ln 2x square minus 3, which means u prime will be equal to 1 upon 2x square minus 3 multiplied by 4x. Okay, so what does u prime look like? U prime is equals to 4x upon 2x square minus 3. अभी इसको ऐसे ही रखते हैं. First, let's focus on u. So a v. V is equals to 3x, which means v prime is simply equal to 3. So vu prime minus uv prime upon v square. Okay, vu prime minus uv prime upon v square. So that means dy by dx is equals to v u prime, that means 3x into 4x over 2x square minus 3 minus uv prime, which means minus 3 ln 2x square minus 3 divided by v square. V square means 3x square. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब नोट करो कि क्वेश्चन ने आपको किसी specific form में लिखने को नहीं कहा हुआ. Okay, the question did not ask you to simplify or write it in certain form. So that means we don't necessarily have to waste our time simplifying this. Okay, so I'm just going to multiply the numerators. So that's 12x squared over 2x squared minus 3 ln 2x squared minus 3 divided by 3x squared. Okay, so the question did not categorically, acha, wait a minute, this is going to be 3x whole square. So please don't make that error. It's 3x whole square, so that means it's going to be 9x squared. So because the question did not ask us to leave in a specific form, this is good enough. Okay? Why did the question not ask us to simplify or anything? Because the follow-up question does not require the simplified version. Okay, the follow-up question says, hence, find the approximate change in y when x increases from 2 to 2 plus h. What do we have to do? We have to find out the approximate change in y when x increases from 2 to 2 plus h. Now remember the formula? There's a formula for questions like these. That is small change in y over small change in x is approximately equal to dy upon dx. Okay? Now how do we find dy by dx? As far as small change in x is concerned, we can see that quite clearly. The small change in x is equal to h. But how do we find dy by dx? For dy by dx, the value of x that we're going to plug in is always the initial value. Okay, so we plug in x equals to 2. Why? Because 2 is the initial value. So let's plug in 2. I think इसमें हमें लाजमी कैलकुलेटर चाहिए होगा. ठीक है, अभी तक हमने यूज़ नहीं किया था कैलकुलेटर, बट अब हमें लाजमी चाहिए होगा. So 12 upon 2x, 12 into 2x square. Now this can be worked out partially mentally. 2 square is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 minus 3 is 5. ठीक है, माइनस, वैसे मेरा आपको मशवरा ये है कि ये आप अपने कैलकुलेटर में एज इट इज़ वर्कआउट करें. ठीक है, सो दिस इज़ ऑल्सो इक्वल टू 5 डिवाइडेड बाय 9 into 3 square. Okay, so my advice to you is that you work this out as it is in your calculator so that you don't end up making an error. So when you work this out, let me work this out and see what we get. You get 0.133. So dy by dx is equal to 0.133. Okay? Now, 9 into 2 square, yeah, 9 into 2 square. Sorry, I've written 3, but I've in the calculator done 2. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, now let's plug in everything. So we have small change in y, which we're supposed to find out. Small change in x is basically equal to h, which is approximately equal to dy by dx. That means 0.133. Now cross multiply and you'll have the small change in y, which is approximately equal to 0.133 h. And that's it. Job done. ठीक हो गया. Now, let's do another question. ये इसी की continuation है. Okay, it's the same question. It's a continuation. Rates of change. Now, rates of change are basically my favorite questions. At the instant when x is equals to 2, y is increasing at a rate of 4 units. Find the corresponding rate and increase of x. Okay, for the last part, can we directly write? No, you have to show you're working. Now, if you know, for rates of change, I have a specific way of solving rates of change questions, and that is the 3W approach. So, first of all, what is it that's given? You're given the rate of increase of y. So, this is the first W. What is given? Okay. So, W, W, W. The first is what is given. Okay, this may seem a lot for 2 marks, but this is the standard approach that I like to stick to. Then what you want, and then when you want it. Okay, so basically what is given? You're given the rate of change of y. That means dy by dt is equal to 4. Okay, Now, what is it that you want? If you read the question is asking us to find out the corresponding rate of increase in x. That means you want dx upon dt. When do you want it? You want it when x is equals to 2. Okay, so let's make a chain rule. Dx upon dt is equal to, now remember the rules of chain rule. The numerator of the first fraction is equal to the numerator of what you want. Denominator of the second fraction equal to the denominator of what you want. And in the missing places, we write dy. So dx upon dy, we've already worked out dy by dx. Now notice that the value of x is the same. It's the same as the one that we worked out earlier. Okay, it's the same as the one that we plugged in earlier. So that means dy by dx is going to be equal to 1 upon 0.133 multiplied by dy upon dt, which is equal to 4. So that means dx upon dt is equals to 4 upon 0.133. And work this out using your calculator. And this will be equal to 3.01. So dx upon dt is equal to 3.01. Correct to 3 significant figures. Standard rule, which is we give all our answers correct to 3 significant figures. Okay, now we'll do more of logarithmic later when we're doing a round of full length past paper questions. But first, what I would like to do is I'd like to do trigonometric functions. Trigonometric functions की differentiation is perhaps the lengthiest. So be patient, don't rush into it. Make sure that you memorize all the rules, because oftentimes we don't lose marks because we don't understand it. We lose marks because we haven't memorized the relevant differentials and integrals. So trigonometric functions. Now, first of all, if suppose you have to differentiate sine x. Okay, so remember that differential of sine x is equal to cos x. Okay, differential of sine x is equals to cos x. Number 2, if suppose you're asked to differentiate cos x, then remember that the differential of cos x is equal to minus sine x. Okay. अच्छा, फिर if you're supposed to differentiate tan x, in that case remember that the differential of tan x is equal to sec square x. ठीक है, ये आपने याद करना. There is no way out. There is no trick. There is no way out. This is something that you're supposed to memorize. अच्छा. Now another thing that I'd like you guys to keep in mind is what if there are angles. So for example, let's say you're supposed to differentiate. This d upon dx basically means that you're supposed to differentiate sine along with ax plus b, meaning sine b है, sine के साथ एक angle b है. Okay, so how would you differentiate this? The way that you would differentiate this is as follows. Cos of ax plus b multiplied by the differential of the angle. So that means in the end, the result looks like this. A cos ax plus b. Okay, so first you differentiate the trigonometric function and then you differentiate the angle. Okay, just like when you're differentiating a composite function, first you differentiate the power, then the bracket inside, then the expression inside the bracket. Here you first differentiate the trigonometric function and then the angle. Okay. Now let's do another example. Let's say that you have d upon dx, which means you're supposed to differentiate cos of ax plus b. So what will that look like? That will be, what's the differential of cos? That's minus sine. So minus sine into ax plus b multiplied by the differential of the angle. So what's the differential of ax plus b? That's equal to a. So the end result is, here's the end result. Minus a sine of ax plus b. Okay? Now, lost. Let's suppose that you have to differentiate d upon dx, and what you're supposed to differentiate is tan of ax plus b. Now what will this look like? This will be sec squared ax plus b multiplied by the differential of the angle, which is equal to a. So that means the end result is basically a sec square ax plus b. ठीक है, अभी आपने याद करना है. There is no way out, there is no easier way, there is no shortcut, there is no nothing. It's just something you're supposed to memorize. ठीक है? Now, let's look at trigonometric functions with power. Okay, so this is also part of your syllabus. That is, maybe you have to differentiate sine square, maybe you have to differentiate cos square. What do you do in that case? ठीक है, तो इस तरह के questions भी हमारे syllabus में हैं. So let's have a look at that. So what if we have to differentiate trig functions with power? Okay, so trigonometric functions with power. And let's start with sine. So suppose you have to differentiate sine raised to the power of n ax plus b. कोई मुझे बता सकता है इसको कैसे करेंगे? Like, what are the steps that we follow? Anyone? ठीक है. Sir, since you always say it's better to convert the answer to sine and cos in a scenario, I say that, so that's not what I say. I say that if you're solving an identity, in that case it's best to bring everything in terms of sine and cos. I don't say that you're supposed to give the final answer in sine and cos. I haven't said that. That applies to identity. कि जब भी अगर आप identity solve कर रहे हैं, तो in that case it's best to give an answer in the form of identity. Yes, Kabir, that is correct. So basically आपने ये 3 letters याद रखो. P, T, A. ठीक है? Now what's the P for? P is to remind you that the first thing that you do is that you differentiate the power. Okay? Then the T is to remind you that the second thing that you differentiate is the trig function. Then the A is to remind you that the third and the final thing that you differentiate is the angle. ठीक है? So PTS इसको याद रखो. Now, let's start by differentiating the power. Okay, how do you differentiate the power? You multiply the power and you take 1 away from it. So that means sine raised to the power n minus 1 into ax plus b. Then what do? You multiply it by the differential of the trigonometric function. So how would you differentiate sine ax plus b? That's going to be cos ax plus b. And then what do? You multiply it by the differential of the angle, which is a. So your end result, your final result will look like this. Na sine raised to the power n minus 1 into ax plus b, and then cos into ax plus b. Cos of ax plus b, basically. That's it. ठीक है? So that was basically for sine. Now for every other trigonometric function, we will follow the exact same rule. So for example, let's suppose that you have to differentiate not sine, but you have to differentiate cos. So let's suppose you have to differentiate cos raised to the power of n into ax plus b. Okay, so we follow the exact same procedure. That is, first we differentiate the power, so n cos raised to the power n minus 1 into ax plus b multiplied by differential of sine, which is a differential of cos, which is minus sine ax plus b multiplied by the differential of the angle, which is a. So the end result is going to look like this. Minus na cos raised to the power n minus 1 ax plus b multiplied by sine, not cos, multiplied by sine into ax plus b. ठीक है? So it's lengthy, but the good news is कि ये हमारा standard rules हैं. Questions often इतने lengthy नहीं होंगे. Now, last, that is d upon dx into tan of n ax plus b. So here we go. N times tan raised to the power n minus 1 into ax plus b. Now what's the differential of tan? That's sec square. So sec square ax plus b multiplied by the differential of the angle, which is equal to a. And then the final answer will be na tan raised to the power n minus 1 cost wouldn't be cos raised to the power n minus 1? No. सिर्फ हमने sin की power कम करनी है, ठीक है, everything else remains the same. So tan raised to the power n minus 1 ax plus b multiplied by sec square with ax plus b. Okay? Now, let's do some past paper questions. Let's start with some easy ones and then we'll gradually increase the difficulty level. So here's a very simple question. You're given y, and you're supposed to show dy by dx. Now, although it's a simple question, but it's worth 5 marks because there's probably some identities that we have to use. In fact, there's definitely some identities that we have to use along the way. Okay, so if you're differentiating trigonometric functions, remember there's got to be some identities that you have to use along the way. So here, y is equals to, Ali, this is for IGCSE as well. Please read the title. What does the title say? Does the title not say IGCSE? So IGCSE and O-level advanced, they're exactly the same. Now u is equals to 1 plus sine x, which means u prime will be equal to cos x. V is equals to cos x, which means v prime will be equal to minus sine x. Okay, so vu prime plus uv prime. So here's dy by dx. Keep your eyes on the prize. You're supposed to write it as 1 over 1 minus sine x. So vu prime means cos square x minus 1 plus sine x multiplied by minus sine x. Okay, so we'll figure this out in the next step. That's it. Okay. Upon v square. Upon v square, which means upon cos square x. Okay. Y minus n, where did I write minus n? Okay, so in case you're asking why minus n, because there's a minus sign over here. Differential of cos is minus sign. So here's what we have. We have cos square x. Now be careful when you're expanding the brackets. You don't want to, I'm not talking about add maths. But this is add maths, okay? This is not maths. If you're talking about math, then you're at the wrong place. This stream is not for you. So one thing that I would suggest is, because there are two negatives, so immediately make them positive. Now what happens next is this. You have 1 plus sine x, which is equal to sine x. And then you have sine x plus sine x, which is equal to sine square x. Okay? Upon cos square x. Now, cos square x plus sine square x, that's equal to 1. So 1 plus sine x upon cos square x. Acha, ab, notice that here, if you look at what we have and look at what we're supposed to bring it equal to. Now, how will I figure out what it is that we have to do? Yeah. So here we have to bring the denominator in terms of sine. So that means that's our q. Okay, we have to change so it's no more a differentiation question, it's an identities question now. So that's our q, that we have to change the denominator into 1 minus sine square x. अच्छा, अब आप लोगों के लिए एक सवाल है. What is the identity that we're going to use at this point? What is the appropriate identity that we have to use at this point? And let me give you a hint, it's not algebraic. Wait, I just gave away the answer. I wanted to say that it's not a trigonometric identity. It's an algebraic identity. So since I've answered my question myself, so I'm not going to ask you guys, but the identity that we're going to use is an algebraic identity, okay? Now remember, this is a very sneaky identity. Okay, so this a square minus b square is equals to a plus b into a minus b. It's a very sneaky identity. मैं इसको यही बोलता हूँ कि ये बहुत ही खामोशी से आ जाएगी, आपको पता भी नहीं चलेगा और आप सोचते रह जाएंगे कि हमें यहाँ पे करना क्या है. ठीक है, you will be so fixated on thinking of a trigonometric identity that you won't even realize that it's there. So it's there. It's 1 square minus sine square x. That means the it's basically two perfect squares with a minus sign in between. That means we can write the denominator as 1 plus sine x into 1 minus sine x. So 1 plus sine x cancels, and now what we end up with is 1 minus sine x. There you go. Yeah, difference of two squares. So look for difference of two squares. I'll write that as well. Look for difference of two squares. और मैं साथ साथ ये भी लिख देता हूँ कि it could be 1 square minus cos square x, or it could be 1 square minus sin square x, and obviously goes for tan as well. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब ज़रा एक थोड़ा सा complicated question करते हैं, worth more marks, and here it is. So we have a curve, we have its equation, we're supposed to find dy by dx, and we're supposed to show that the x coordinate of the stationary point satisfies so and so equation. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Now here we have two different types of functions that we're differentiating. Okay, we have u, which is equal to e raised to the power 2x, which means u prime will be equal to 2e raised to the power 2x. I've done it directly, so I hope nobody has a problem. Then v is equals to sine x, which means v prime is equals to cos x. So vu prime plus uv prime. So dy by dx is equal to vu prime, which means 2e raised to the power 2x multiplied by sine x. Keep your eyes on the prize. The question says show that the x coordinate of the stationary point satisfies this equation. Okay, plus e raised to the power 2x multiplied by cos x. Okay, so 2e raised to the power 2x multiplied by sine x plus e raised to the power 2x multiplied by cos x is equal to what? Is equal to 0. Now what is it that I can factor out? What is it that I can take common? I can take 2 common. I can take e raised to the power 2x common. So if I do that, we have 2 sine x. अच्छा wait, मैंने कुछ लगता है गड़बड़ कर दी है. साइन का डिफरेंशियल cos होता है. Why do we have a minus sign here? Oh wait, I forgot that it's quotient rule. Sorry, I'm using product rule. I forgot that it's quotient rule. So it's going to be minus upon v square. Minus upon v square, which means minus upon sine square x. Okay. So what can I take common? I can take e power 2x common, and if I do that, we have 2 sine x minus cos x upon v square, which is equal to sine square x. And because we're finding out the stationary point, that means we're going to equate it to 0. Okay. Now upon cross multiplying, this is what you have. You have e power 2x into 2 sine x minus cos x equal to 0. At this point, what do we say? We say that it's either e power 2x that's equal to 0, or it's 2 sine x minus cos x that's equal to 0. Now as far as e power 2x equals to 0, we all know that's not possible because an exponential graph is never equal to 0. But here it is, 2 sine x minus cos x is equal to 0. This is what we were supposed to show, and we've done that. So there you go. What do we say? We say hence shown. That's it. Job done. Okay, now what's the following part? The following part is find the x coordinate of the stationary point. Because of quotient rule, reason why it's minus is because quotient rule is dy by dx is equals to v u prime minus u v prime upon v square. Why won't we solve sine square x? There's nothing to solve because as soon as we multiply it by 0, it just disappears. There is no need to solve this. Now, part 2 says find the x coordinate of the stationary point. So we know that the equation which will give us the x coordinate of the stationary point is right here. This is the equation that we're supposed to solve. Now, it's no more a differentiation question. It is now a trigonometry question. And how will I solve this? Here's how I will solve this. 2 sine x minus cos x equals to 0. Now what comes to mind when you look at this question? An identity which can help us connect sine and cos. And the identity is 2 sine x is equals to cos x, which means sine x upon cos x is equal to 1 upon 2. How was the cos minus? Because of quotient rule. Make sure that you know what the quotient rule formula is. So tan x is equals to 1 upon 2. Now, what is the range that's given to us? The range of x that's given to us is from 0 to pi. Now, tan is positive. Positive tan means that it's either in the first quadrant or it's in the third quadrant. Can we go in the third quadrant? Of course not. We cannot go in the third quadrant. Okay, now make sure that your calculator is in radian mode, because the range is in terms of pi, so our calculators must be in radian mode. Now, how will I find alpha? Alpha will be equal to tan inverse of 1 upon 2. So what's alpha equal to? Let's check. So if I take tan inverse of 1 upon 2, make sure that your calculator is in radian mode. Like I said, we get 0.4636. The reason why I'm taking so many significant figures, because this is not the final answer. So what's the value of x? X is equals to 0.4636. And then what's the other value of x? That's it. We cannot find the other value of x because this is going to be outside the range. So when you're giving your final answer, make sure to give it correct to 3 significant figures, which is 0.464 radian. Okay. Do I recommend taking further maths? So here's a simple rule that you can apply to yourself and decide whether you should take further math or not. Okay, a simple rule. The rule is this, that if throughout your life you haven't felt challenged by any form of math, then you can take further math to really challenge yourself, to really push your limits. But if you have struggled in maths, if there have been stages in life where you found yourself struggling in math, then in that case, I don't suggest that you take further math. Simple as that. ठीक है? ये rule follow करना. Now, variables x and y. Now this is another question. This is question number 3. After this, we'll do one more question. एक बड़ा interesting सवाल है इसके बाद, and then after that, we'll end it. So we're given y is equals to 1 plus cos square x upon tan x. Now, how will I differentiate this? We'll have to use quotient rule. So 1 plus cos square x, which means u prime is equals to 0 plus 2 cos x. And what would be the differential of cos x? That would be minus sin x. ठीक है? Yeah, ln और e के graphs मैं इंशाल्लाह functions में कराऊंगा. Okay, so what do we get? We get minus 2 sin x cos x. Okay. Now let's talk about v. V is equals to tan x, which means v prime is equal to sec square x. So vu prime minus uv prime upon v square. dy by dx is equal to vu prime, that means minus 2. बेटा ये फिर मुझे लग रहा है Bashir, this is not normal math. This is, देखो, I think students think that normal math is just IGCSE. This is what happens when you don't pay attention, and basically this is what happens when you take things lightly. This is not normal math, this is ad maths. It's a different subject altogether. So I hope you're not a math student thinking कि ये मैं math के question solve कर रहा हूँ. This is ad maths. It's a completely separate subject altogether. So vu prime, here it is, minus uv prime, and minus uv prime means, अच्छा मैंने brackets, मैंने lines गलत डाल दी, I just realized. So it's vu prime minus uv prime. So minus uv prime means 1 plus cos square x into sec square x. How do I differentiate cos square? Go back and watch this. You'll understand what I've done. Okay? To summarize it, here's what you do. You first differentiate the power. Okay, you take 1 away from the power and then you multiply it by the differential of the trigonometric function and then the angle. So this is vu prime minus uv prime upon v square, which means upon tan square x. Okay. Now don't waste your time simplifying it. Here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that you simply plug in the value of x, which is equal to pi upon 4. Okay, because the question में ऐसा कहीं नहीं लिखा कि आपको जो है वो simplify करके show करना है that it's equal to so and so. So don't waste your time. Simply plug in the value of x is pi upon 4. However, before you plug in, one change that you will have to make is this. There's no sec square in the calculator. Okay, so after minus, we have 1 plus cos square x. And since sec square x is 1 upon cos square x, so write it like this. And after minus, it's always a good idea to make a bracket because it's the entire thing that's getting subtracted. Upon tan square x. How are we supposed to plug it in the calculator? I want you guys to take a good look at that also. Because I'm afraid a lot of you will simply mess it up. So first thing you should do is make sure that your calculator is in radian mode. Okay? Now be careful. Make a fraction, minus 2 sine, and what do you want? You want pi upon 4. So pi upon 4. Okay. And then cos. In cos also, you want a fraction. What's the angle? Pi upon 4. ठीक हो गया? Then you want tan. In tan also, you want pi upon 4. There you go. Now minus, make a bracket, make a fraction, 1 minus cos, make a fraction, pi upon 4. अच्छा, अब इसके साथ क्या है? इसके साथ square है. Okay, divided by cos square x, so that means divide by cos, make a fraction, pi upon 4. Close the bracket, don't forget to square it, and then close the bracket because there is a minus sign. So ये जो बड़े brackets हैं ये minus के हैं, ये जो छोटे brackets हैं ये trigonometric function के. Divided by tan, make a fraction, write pi upon 4, close the bracket and write square. Now one thing I should point out is that when we are writing, it's plus. Okay, did I write minus? Oh, अच्छा आपने बता दिया, वरना भी सब कुछ गलत हो जाना था. खैर. So thank you for pointing that out, Ali. I appreciate it. So what was I going to say? Yeah. So remember that when we write a trigonometric identity with a square, we write the square with the trig function. Okay, but we enter it in our calculator. In our calculator, we can't enter it with the square function with the square on the trigonometric function. So we write the square after we write the angle. Okay, so press the equals to sign. What do we see? We see minus 4. ठीक है. So calculator से सारा difficult काम करवाएं. आप रिलैक्स करें. इसका मतलब ये हरगिज़ नहीं है कि आपको वर्किंग दिखाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. You obviously have to show your working also. So dy by dx is equals to minus 4. And now we're going to write our final answer. What is it that we're supposed to do? We're supposed to plug in. We're supposed to find out the approximate change in y. So that means this is what we're supposed to use. Small change in y over small change in x is approximately equal to dy by dx. So dy by dx हमारे पास minus 4 आ गया. As far as the small change in x is concerned, that I believe is equal to h. There you go. Now if you cross multiply, so a small change in y is equal to minus 4h. And that's it. Job done. Easy peasy. ठीक हो गया. Now, अच्छा, एक last सवाल. This is perhaps one of my favorite questions. And here it is. It's a 9-mark question, and let me tell you, syntax error, Mariam, it could be कि आपने शायद plus minus सही नहीं लगाया. It could be so many things. अच्छा, don't clear everything. If you get a syntax error, don't just clear everything. What I would suggest is कि आप उसी में देखें, ढूंढें कि आपने कहाँ error किया. Okay, I'll show my working once again, just in case. So here it is. So first of all, make a fraction before you start. Minus 2 sine pi upon 4 into cos pi upon 4 into tan pi upon 4. Okay? Minus, make a bracket. 1 plus cos square x, but remember when we're writing it in our calculator, the square comes on the angle, not on the trig function. Divide by cos square x, so divide by cos with the angle and then a square. And then in the denominator, tan square x, so x is pi upon 4 and then a square. Alright, now let's solve this question. Like I said, this is the last question, and this is perhaps one of my favorite questions. Is this question 3 or question 4? Yeah, that's a good idea, Ali. That's a very good idea. Okay, pi upon 4 को आप आंसर में रख लें, ठीक है. आप वैल्यू स्टोर भी कर सकते हैं, ठीक है. आप वैल्यू स्टोर भी कर सकते हैं और आप उसको आंसर में भी रख सकते हैं. That's actually a good idea. Yeah, do that. That way you won't have to make so many fractions. Okay, you guys always surprise me with your smartness. Now, the normal to the curve at the point a comma 0, where a is between pi upon 2 and pi, meets the y-axis at the point B. Find the exact area of triangle OAB, where O is the origin. Now, first of all, what you have to do is you have to find out the equation of normal. ठीक है, अगर इसको हम एक roughly visualize करें तो this is what it looks like. ठीक है, बहुत ही रफ हम एक इसकी visualization कर रहे हैं. ये एक curve है, ठीक है, sine curve, just a very random sine curve. Okay, everything's totally random here. Now, the tangent to the curve is going to be like this. Okay, the tangent to the curve at a certain point is going to be like this. The normal to the curve will be like this. Okay, yeah, this is the last question. Here's O. Now, according to the question, this tangent meets the y-axis at the point B, and this tangent, now since A is the point A comma 0, that means A will be a point on the x-axis. This is a point that's on the x-axis, and B is the point that's on the y-axis. Now, first thing we have to do is we have to find out what is the point that the question is talking about. Okay, so the very first thing we have to do is we have to find out what is the point that the question is talking about. That point is basically A comma 0. So before I can find out the normal to the curve, yes, I will differentiate and everything, but the question is, what is the value of x that I'm going to plug in? Okay, so x is equals to A, and how do we find out what A is equal to? So here's what we're going to do. Y is equals to sine of 4x minus pi. Let's plug in y as 0. That means sine of 4x minus pi is equals to 0. Okay? Now, don't rely on your calculator here, because your calculator is not going to help you a lot. Because if you take sine across the equals to sine, what happens? When you take sine across the equals to sine, it becomes inverse. Okay, I'm sure everyone knows that. But what's sine inverse of 0? If you take sine inverse of 0, what do you get? Your calculator is of little to no help here, because your calculator is just going to give you one value and that's it. That's the end of it. So 4x minus pi is equals to sine inverse of 0. So let's take sine inverse of 0 using our calculator. You get 0. Okay? Now, we get 0. That means 4x minus pi is equals to 0, which means 4x is equals to pi, which means x is equals to pi upon 4. Is this correct? Is this the correct value of x? What do you guys think? Tell me if you think this is the correct value of x. Not x, actually A. Okay, this is not x, this is actually A. This is wrong. Why is this wrong? This is wrong because notice that the question said that A must be between pi upon 2 and pi upon 4. तो इसका solution क्या है? जो बच्चे अपना common sense यहाँ पे इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे ना, और बहुत ही calculator पे rely करेंगे, I'm afraid they will not be able to solve this question. Now, sine inverse of 0 is basically trying to ask us that when is the graph of sine is equal to 0? Okay, so when the question says sine inverse of 0, the question is trying to ask that when is sine x equals to 0? Okay, now what are the values of x? One is 0, okay? And what are the other values? The other values are pi and 2 pi. So these are all the values when sine is equal to 0. So that means sine inverse of 0 का एक आंसर नहीं होगा, sine inverse of 0 के दो आंसर्स होंगे. एक 0 होगा, एक पाई होगा और एक 2 पाई होगा, ठीक है। अच्छा, अब 0 से सॉल्व करने का नतीजा हमने देख लिया. We saw what happens if we take sine inverse of 0 to be equal to 0. Now what happens if sine inverse of 0 is equals to pi? That means 4x minus pi is equals to pi, which means 4x is equals to 2 pi, which means x or a is equals to 1 upon 2 pi. Is this inside the range? No, it's not. This is also outside the range. So that means the only possible solution that we're likely to get is from 2 pi. So 4x is equals to 3 pi, x is equals to 3 upon 4 pi, and this is the appropriate value of a. Why? Because this is the value of a which falls inside this range. Okay? So remember, heavily relying on your calculator and not, this could very well be a non-calculator question. Okay? In fact, from this point onwards, let's treat it like a non-calculator question, ताकि आप लोगों के non-calculator के paper की भी practice हो जाए. I know उसका material already काफ़ी कम है, so let's treat this as a non-calculator question. Okay, so heavily relying on your calculator while not using your common sense can lead to disaster. Okay, and remember, for values such as 0, 1 and minus 1, don't use your calculator, refer to the shape of the graph and then see what the inverse is going to be. Okay, so yeah, I mean, tell me about it. I think it's a beautiful question. Especially, I mean, this is just the start. Although from this point onwards, it's all downhill. We've tackled the difficult bit, so it's all downhill from here. But this is the reason why it's my favorite question, because I think it distinguishes students who are heavily reliant on their calculator and students who are using their common sense. Now we have the coordinates of A, and they are basically 3 upon 4 pi. Pi upon 4 is not in between the range. Okay, please use your common sense. Pi upon 2 is half pi, whereas pi upon 2 is 0.25 pi. So the range is between half pi and pi. So 0.25 or 1 upon 4 is outside the range. Now what we're going to do is we're going to differentiate. We're going to find out the equation of tangent at the point A. Okay, so let's differentiate. What's the differential of sine? It's going to be cos of 4x minus pi multiplied by 4. Okay, so 4 cos 4x minus pi is what dy by dx is equal to. Okay, now what's the value of x? We've figured out the value of x. That's equal to 3 upon 4 pi. The value of x that we're going to plug in is 3 upon 4 pi. Achha, I've shared the practice papers on my Instagram. Go on my Instagram story. I've shared all the practice papers there. There's a link to it which will take you to a folder where I've shared all the practice papers. Now let's plug in x into this, and when you plug in a value of x in dy by dx, remember you get the gradient of tangent. So this gives us 4 cos of 4 into 3 upon 4 pi minus pi. That means 4 and 4 cancel. Now we have to work out 4 cos 2 pi. Now what's cos 2 pi equal to? Don't think that you have to sit down and memorize this. You can simply draw the graph of cos and find out what cos 2 pi is. So this is what the graph of cos looks like. Cos of 2 pi is equals to 1. So that means the gradient of tangent is equal to 4, which means that the gradient of normal will be minus 1 upon 4. Now in order to find out the equation of normal, we need a point and the gradient. We have the gradient, now we need a point. The point is the same as a because a pe hi normal ban raha hai. Now let's put this together. Y minus 0 is equals to minus 1 upon 4 into x minus 3 upon 4 pi. This is the equation of normal. How will we find b? I'll explain. So b is the point where the normal is cutting the y-axis. So we'll simply plug in x as 0. Okay, so how will I find b? First, let's write the equation nicely. The equation looks like y is equals to minus 1 upon 4 into x minus 3 upon 4 pi. Now, b is the point where the normal is cutting the y-axis, so that means its coordinates are going to look like this. So let's plug in 0 in place of x. So minus 1 upon 4 into minus 3 upon 4 pi. That means the coordinates of b look like this. 3 upon 16 pi. Okay, now it's time to put everything together. So this is what the normal look like. The coordinates of b are 0, 3 upon 16 pi. The coordinates of a or a comma 0, and a was 3 upon 4 pi. Now how will we find out the equation or the area? This is a triangle, that means area is equals to half into base into height. So this length can be the base and this length can be the height. So half into base, which means half into 3 upon 4 pi, into the height, which is equal to 3 upon 16 pi. Yeah, I wouldn't advise that you use the modulus method over here. I mean, पेपर में मेरा नहीं ख्याल आप इतने मज़े में होंगे कि आप कहेंगे चलो मैं modulus method यूज़ कर लेता हूँ यहाँ पे. एक चीज़ जो कि straight forward तरीके से हो रही है, उसको straight forward तरीके से करो. No need to make life more difficult than it already is. So 16 times 4 is 64. 64 times 2 is 128. And there you go, fellas. This is the final answer. So all 9 marks, you had to earn every single one of them. I mean, you had to earn every single one of the 9 mark, and here we are. This is the final answer. अच्छा, I wish मेरे पास इसकी एग्जामिनर रिपोर्ट होती तो मैं आप लोगों को दिखाता कि क्या क्या what the examiner has to say at this point. Let me see if I can find it. Just a minute. Don't go anywhere. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, brilliant. So I was right. This is February, March 2023. ठीक है, मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ इसकी एग्जामिनर रिपोर्ट. So this is paper 2, variant 2, question number 11. Paper 2, variant 2, question number 11. Okay, I want to show you guys especially the part where you take the inverse. Okay, and what question is this? This is question number 2, variant 2, question number 11. इसकी एग्जाम रिपोर्ट ही नहीं है, ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? अच्छा, that's kind of strange कि February March paper 2 variant 2 February March 2023 और इसकी एग्जामिनर रिपोर्ट ही नहीं है. अच्छा, ये काफ़ी स्ट्रेंज सी बात है कि इस क्वेश्चन के बारे में इन्होंने कुछ बताया हुआ ही नहीं है. बट आई एम प्रीटी श्योर लॉट ऑफ कैंडिडेट्स मस्ट हैव मेस्ड अप विथ दैट पार्ट, the inverse part where you take sine inverse of 0 and you get multiple values. I'm pretty sure a lot of candidates must have messed up that part. But surprisingly इन्होंने question number 11 के बारे में कुछ बताया हुआ ही नहीं है. I guess भूल गए होंगे. खैर, anyway, so no, this is not 4037, this is 0606. Now remember, they're the same, except only difference is that they have an extra session. Okay, IGCSE students have an extra session. So we'll stop here, and in the next part, inshallah, we will do. So we're done with differentiation through and through, but we will do lots of past paper questions, inshallah, coming soon. I'll announce on my Instagram what I'm streaming next. So take care, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next stream. I'll announce, like I said, I'll announce on my Instagram and I'll post on YouTube also. Okay? So take care, everyone. See you guys in the next stream. Allah Hafiz.